another session of Gallant Current Affairs CaN. So let's move on to today's topic. I have 6 topics with me today which deals about yesterday's 2 important topics and today's 4 important topics. So we have the riding India for food security, like there is an important topic relating to food security in India. We have Gresham's law relating to the government fixing up of fixed exchange rates. Then simultaneous election, what are the pros and how are the solutions which can actually, what are the cons and the solution which is actually mentioned under the author. Then climate phenomena and how the food security is affected by the changing climate. We have the Circular dispute, it's a low hanging fruit, that and Sichuan glacier, that both disputes are low hanging fruits in case of India-Pakistan border dispute. Then we have the outbreak of Nipah virus in Kerala. So let us look into these 6 topics. Riding India of food security. So if you are looking, there has been a rise in food prices in the recent years in India. Like if you are looking like since 2019 up till like there has been an increase in food price still exceeding about 11% in India. So if you are looking into the state of food security and nutrition in the world by the report which is given out by the UN agency, Food and Agriculture Organization, it portrays that 74% of the population cannot actually afford a healthy food. Now this report actually states about the percentage of people in the country who cannot actually afford any kind of healthy foods. So it states that particularly in India, 74% of the people cannot actually take a healthy diet. Like in a population like 1.4 billion of population are there in India. If you are taking approximately 74%, at least 1 billion of people is actually not able to get any kind of healthy diet. So if you are looking in every country, if you are taking all the countries together, India has the lowest cost associated with getting a nutritious food. But still 74% of the people in India cannot afford a healthy diet. So that actually talks about the state of India presently. Of taking all the world around, India has the lowest cost regarding with, like you can get a very healthy diet for a low cost, but still 74% of the people in India cannot afford that. So that is actually stated in this article. So if you are looking into more, the percentage, like the increase in price for a thali to be prepared in home. If you are in North India, you know thali, the different foods that comes with it. So the price of thali has been increasing, if say, it has been increasing 65%. But the thing is that the work or the salary or the wage that a manual worker gets is actually just increasing by 38% only. And that for a salaried workman is only increasing by 28%. As you see, the food price is actually increasing, but the salary or the income is actually not increasing per person. Now this is actually going to cause purchasing power problems, because of which they are actually not going to be able to afford any better food. The problem is that if they are actually even earning but the food prices are increasing, the majority of the savings would actually go into food and they would stop there, like there would be a stop in demand to the other goods, because of which they will be focusing more on the food items and not on the non-food items, because of which the savings majority will go into food items and the demand for the other goods, the non-food good, would gradually decrease, because of which we can actually see that the factory might close, the workers might lose a job because there is no demand on the non-food kind of foods, and we can actually see a more vicious cycle of poverty that is still happening around. So you see, even in this, reduction in purchasing power and reduction in the food consumption is also portrayed here. If you are looking in the National Family Health Survey that is conducted 2019 to 2021, it actually states that 50% of the adult woman has anemia, and this anemia is actually caused due to nutrition deficiency. Now you see, what is the state of India is currently in? Like self-sufficiency in food has been actually achieved. Every people can get food, everybody, no one goes hungry here. But the problem is that we are not able to give a healthy diet out there. So what is the RBI doing in this? There is inflation in food prices happening. What is the RBI doing? The RBI for the past 4 years, they are actually not able to control the inflation that is happening particularly in the food. There are 2 types of inflations which you could actually mention. There is one, the money circulation that overall takes place in the economy and that actually boosts to inflation. The other side is the supply that is not actually meeting the demand. Why is there inflation? The majority thing is that there is no supply. The supply is actually not ensured for the amount of demand that is actually persisting in the society. So the problem with the Indian economy is not always about the money circulation happening in the economy, but the problem is that the supply is actually not meeting the demand. So that is a persistent problem in the Indian economy. If we meet the supply itself, the majority of the inflation that actually persists in the Indian economy will be gone. So the problem with the Indian economy is we have to meet the supply and the demand. So the author is stating here is that a second green revolution would be actually effective. We know the first green revolution occurred in 1960s. There was high yield variety crops introduced, new fertilizer patterns introduced, the irrigation was increased, because of which we were actually able to achieve the aim of self-sufficiency of food in India. We were persisting with a lot of hunger and poverty at that time, and this first green revolution was a very big success. But with the success of green revolution, there is also cons for it. There was like overutilization of irrigation water, because of which it led to depletion of groundwater resources. Overuse of chemical fertilizer, because of which the land was actually uncultivable in the later stage. There was a lot of environmental degradation that was happening too. So is that a kind of green revolution that we actually need now? No. We have ensured the self-sufficiency of food. Now what we need to increase is the productivity. We need to increase the productivity, we need to increase the nutritional value, and there is a lot of climate change happening due to El Nino, Indian Ocean Dipole and such, the delay of southwest monsoon. All this, we need to address all the climatic phenomena, the productivity of the crop and the nutrition. So because of which we need a second green revolution, so that they can actually address all these issues that is actually pertaining in the society, and further we can actually ensure much more nutritious diet to the people. Okay, so what are the initiatives to work on? We know the irrigation, a lot of governments, like there are a lot of micro irrigation schemes, like lakhs of micro irrigation schemes are actually presently in India. But the problem is that the irrigation is actually still not effective. So that has to be addressed. That can be actually either due to the diversion of funds or such, or not proper utilization. But the thing is that the irrigation has to be properly addressed in India. Now, there is actually ongoing fragmentation of land. A small plots of land goes to each of the person. So the problem is that there is no diversity, there is overutilization of funds, there is overutilization of fertilizer, irrigation method, and that is very unsustainable. So increase that all these small plots of land should be given out in lease, so that we can actually increase the productivity in a much larger area rather than in a small plots. Now, India's network of public agricultural research. So you see, we need to increase like the crops which are more actually resistant to that kind of heat waves and the climate action, the crops which can actually give much more productivity in lesser water and lesser area. So we need more development and research in these fields, so that we can actually, India can come up to better agricultural productivity in India. Also, the other thing is that villages play a very crucial role. They have the traditional knowledge of agriculture and such. So it's high time that we actually utilize their knowledge also, so that we can actually ensure much more sustainable agriculture, and we can actually ensure the nutritious food supply in India. Now moving on, we have the Gresham's law. The first thing I will tell you about this, Gresham's law refers to the direct term, that is bad money drives out the good money. Now keep this bad money drives out good money in your mind. That is what the Gresham's law is actually saying. Bad money drives out good money. When I am done with the explanation, you will understand what this is actually stating about. So the Gresham law is actually applicable when a government is actually trying to fix the exchange rates. So that is how the Gresham's law is actually applicable. So if you are seeing here, presently if you are taking $1 is actually close to rupees 83 in India. Now you can see here how the devaluation, the depreciation of the currency is actually taking place. That is $1 is like we have to give about 83 rupees to purchase $1. Now the government is actually fixing that $1 is rupees 30. See this case, $1 is rupees 30. You can only give rupees 30 to purchase $1. You cannot give rupees 83 to purchase $1. So that is actually what is happening here. When this case comes out, this rupees 30, that the Indian rupees currently here is overvalued. Whereas this $1 here is actually undervalued. So you see, that is what is actually takes place when a government is actually trying to fix two exchange rate system. The two currencies actually fixed by the government at a certain ratio that is different from the current market exchange system. This $1 is equal to rupees 83 was actually the current market rate exchange system, but that was actually made it to $1 is equal to rupees 30, which means that the Indian rupee here is actually overvalued and the $1 here is actually undervalued. So because of which a lot of problems is actually takes place. The problem is that the undervalued money gets driven out from the Indian economy, and this overvalued money is actually taking place in India. The problem here is that if I am actually wanting to purchase like $1, I would be giving, as per the Indian government, I should be giving rupees 30 only. But the problem is that the original value is 83. Why would anyone would give $1 for rupees 30 when the original exchange rate is 83? Now because of which people will start saving the dollars more, and they will try to take dollars out of India so that they can actually get better rates for this dollar. There is actually, because of which it is only 30 rupees here. In outside you can actually get like more than 100 or 200 rupees for this 1 rupee dollar, which means that people actually try to hold on to this money or take it outside India so they can actually sell this dollars for higher rate. Now that is caused here because this dollar is actually driving out of India. Because of this dollar goes out of India, and this Indian overvalued currency actually started increasing in India. So that is basically what Gresham's law is stating, is that the bad money, that is the bad money, overvalued money is actually driving out the undervalued money, which is actually, this is the good, this is the bad. So the bad money actually, bad money drives out the good money. So that is a glimpse or brief of what is the Gresham's law is all about. That is what here I have actually mentioned in the second slide. $1 is rupees 83 close. We have fixing it as rupees 30. Such price fixing actually causes the overvaluation of the Indian rupees, and the problem is that the currency supply actually drops. The supply of dollars within the Indian economy actually drops, and the Indian rupees, which is the overvalued Indian money, will actually dominate the market systems in India. Now this is prevalent because in Sri Lanka they have actually formulated this in Sri Lanka. In Sri Lanka they state that, like, due to the economic crisis that is happening in Sri Lanka, they state that for $1 you should actually give only like rupees 200 Sri Lankan, like Sri Lankan rupees 200. That is what the Sri Lankan government has actually fixed. For $1 you should only pay Sri Lankan rupees 200 Sri Lankan rupees. That is what they have told. Because of which there is a lot of black marketing happening in Sri Lanka. Because of this, there is a lot of black marketing based on dollars that is actually currently happening in Sri Lanka right now. People were actually banned from paying more than rupees 200 for $1, that is in Sri Lanka, and this rupees 200 was actually overvalued, and this that $1 was actually undervalued in the case of Sri Lanka. Now because of which all the good money is driven out by the bad money. Even if people actually want to purchase any dollars, they have to actually go to the black market, where they have to actually pay much more bigger amount to actually purchase $1. If they are purchasing $1 like 200, in the black market they have to give more money to purchase $1. So this Gresham's law is only applicable if this currency rate is actually fixed. If a government fixes this exchange rate, then only this Gresham's law is applicable. In certain cases where the government is not fixing any kind of market exchange rate, and the people are free to actually do whatever they please, or do the exchange, do it in currency which they actually prefer, because of which this actually drives out the bad money and the good money actually comes in. So we will tell you that law is actually called as the Thayer's law. In the absence of any such government decree fixing the exchange rate, the good money that eventually will drive out the bad money out of the market, and not the other way around. That is actually told by this Thayer's law. The exchange rate between the currency is actually not fixed, and the people have the choice to freely choose between the currency they want. You can use dollars or they can use Indian rupees. The people are actually free to use the currency they want. And the thing is that the people will gradually stop using such kind of bad quality money, and they will actually start using the bad quality money like the rupees, and they actually start using more like the dollars, which are actually better quality rupees, because of which the good actually drives away the bad. Now we can actually state an example like cryptocurrencies. That is actually a good example for this Thayer's law. Now this cryptocurrency is actually a good example of good money which is actually driving out the bad money which is actually issued by the government. So in the present state you can see that cryptocurrencies are good money which is driving out the bad government money. So that is about both the laws which you need to know, basic, which is based about the fixing of the market exchange rate system. So now moving on to today's topic, we have the simultaneous election. So recently there are a lot of props have been going on regarding should the election be fixed or not. There are a lot of pros and there are a lot of cons that are associated with this simultaneous fixing of elections. So let us look into this. What are the cons that has been stated in this article and what are the solutions the author actually mentions about this. So if you are looking here, the first thing everything comes into mind is if you are actually fixing all this, if we are actually fixing all the elections into one single frame in state, that we can actually save a lot of money. But the author says that that is not true, because even if you are conducting everything together or everything splitted, the amount of money, the savings which you can actually make is pretty much very less. So that is what the author has been saying. The financial benefits which you might get from conducting all the elections together or the elections separately is not actually very much big difference. So that is one author has said. Then there is actually the population in India is about 1.4 billion people. It's not like the 1960s where the number of people was less. Now India is one of the most populous countries all over the world. So conducting a simultaneous election in every place for 1.4 billion population is not a simple task. It is equal to a nightmare itself. Then the thing is, each assembly started on different tiers. The Karnataka assembly is much more recent. Now the elections is going to happen in a few other states right now. So the thing is that if every of the assemblies, the state assemblies and the parliamentary assemblies to come in the same track, which means that we have to dissolve certain assemblies. So that is actually a huge task. So a majority of the assemblies should have to be dissolved. Some may be rather new and some of their terms would be actually coming to end. For those assemblies which are coming to an end, it might be not a problem. But the assemblies which have actually started just now, that is actually going to be another problem if they are actually dissolved right now. Then how to ensure that 5-year cycle everywhere? You see, initially starting till 1967 or such, the election was actually simultaneous election that has been happening in India. 4 such elections has actually taken place in India. But the problem is that after some time there was implement of presidential rule in some other states like Kerala and such. Then the coalition party actually broke out, because of which their new government has been formed in that state. So certain things happened because of which the simultaneous election broke. So what is that like in the future also no such incidents won't happen. If that happened in the past, the thing is that even if you actually create simultaneous election, the thing is that in the future also no confidence motion can happen, the dissolution of Lok Sabha can happen, the coalition government may fall. So what will the government do in such a situation? How can the cycle can be actually maintained in the future as well? That was one important question that was actually raised by the author. Now, horse trading, which actually means that the legislation is shifting between parties for money and power. This may also can actually increase in the future against the federal policies. If simultaneous election is actually taking place all over the states, means that central will have authority of the states, like central parties, the national parties will have more authority of the state parties and regional parties. The national parties will actually prove out the unionist kind of agendas, where like in a region there are some priorities and focus we will be focusing about. So in the national party actually pulls out that kind of union agendas, the local problems will vanish and people will be more focused about this national problems as such and not addressing their own regional problems. So you can actually state that the national party overtaking that of the other region and state parties would be happening. Now that is kind of a problem that actually affects this federal polity. It gives more power to the central government rather than the state government, and this is against democracy as well. Now we know democracy is that there is actually will of the people be respected. If like every year like 4 to 5 elections is actually happening, means that the people can hold the government responsible every single time. But if happening just once in every 5 years, is very much little that the people can hold the government responsible for any such things. So it keeps that the elections happening every time, the government will be actually in check. But the problem here, there also lies another problem, which is that the government will be more focused on the election campaign rather than the entire governance of India. The government will focus on short-term policies so that they could actually get the political vote bank benefits rather than the long-term benefits that can be actually given to the people via governance. So that is also another problem that is actually associated with this. So what is actually the author stating as a solution? State election should be fought by the state parties. Now each and every state, their state party, like the state party should actually fight the election and not the national national or the central government, where the central government should be focusing on governance alone, and the election campaign will be actually fought by the representative of the national party in the state. So that is one suggestion that the actually author gives. Now, ensure president rule. Now, if like how do we actually ensure 5-year cycle everywhere? Now, for that a solution has been already given. Either we implement president rule. President rule be implemented in a state when it is actually dissolved for the continuation of term. But that has also its own limitation. If no president's rule, you can actually get another. An alternate government is formed. At least unless an alternate government is there, no confidence motion can actually take place. So this alternate government can actually carry out the rest of the terms of that present government that is there. Alternate government present if no confidence motion arises. The term only since next cycle. So there are the simultaneous the terms cycle will actually comes in the same line. And Panchayat and municipality model, we know like in Panchayat and municipality the cycle is every time is the same. If a panchayat or municipality is actually dissolved in between, the by-election will be conducted, and the body which has been actually selected would only be continuing the rest of the terms and no full 5 terms. That model can be actually adopted in India. So certain countries like simultaneous election is just not present, not just been in India. But there are many other countries who still actually have simultaneous election. We have the South Africa where the national and the state parties both are elected together. We have the Sweden where the national, state as well as the local bodies are actually elected together. We can find certain laws in Britain and Germany as well for the simultaneous election as well. So that is what the author has been stating as an example. Moving on, we have our next topic. Climate phenomena and food security. In this actually we have to about this climate change has been there in India. Like it's actually over the top of India and has been creating a lot of problem in India and all over the globe. So if you are seeing this climate change phenomena has actually caused floods, landslides and other such phenomena, especially in our Himalayan states in India. We know the tropical monsoon trough which has actually shifted from the center of India to much more Himalayan area, because of which they are actually getting much more rain there. There is excess water, because of which it is actually causing flood landslide. We can talk about particular states like Uttarakhand, Himachal and such. So there is actually a report that 65% of this intra-annual variability in the southern west monsoon is actually caused by El Nino, southern oscillation and Indian Ocean dipole. So an article states that 65% of this variation in our southwest monsoon is actually caused by ENSO and IOD. So let us look more into it. So if you are looking, we have El Nino food security. Like if you are looking about the water we use in India, there are 2 types of water we actually predominantly use in India. One, that is actually green water, and then there is actually blue water. If you are looking, green water is actually natural water which we actually get like during rain. It's actually rain-fed soil moisture, and this is what is actually evaporated later as well. If you are looking into blue water, we have which is actually water which is stored in rivers, lakes, dams, reservoirs and such. So this El Nino and the other climate actually affects the green water system. So when the green water system, like the rain is actually affected, the agriculture in India would also be affected. For example, there is actually delay in monsoon. Now because of the delay in monsoon, there will be actually difficulty or delay in the sowing. Now in this time period, the temperature can actually increase, which would affect the soil moisture, the productivity of the crop as well. So that is how it is affected. The problem in India is that we actually depend a lot of green water rather than the blue water. The government has put forward a lot of policy to actually support the blue water system. We have dams, reservoirs, irrigation method by which actually support the blue water system. But still India is actually dependent a lot on the green water system. Now there are certain crops that is actually dependent upon green water, certain crops dependent upon this blue water as well. If you are looking about rice, the kharif crops and such, they are actually particularly dependent upon the green water systems. But whereas the rabi crops, they are actually more dependent upon this blue water system. So because of which this green water as well as the blue water is much more vital for India, and we have to actually stop the dependency or a lot of dependency on the green water system, because this is actually affected by our monsoon system, which is affected recently. The southwest monsoon is affected by the El Nino and the Indian Ocean dipole, which is actually persistent now. India depends upon the green water. Even after the blue water, for promoting the blue water, government has actually taken certain measures. The other thing is that for our diet, for our daily diet per person per day, we require about 3 to 6 liters of water per day as per the article. For every person, but per person per day we require about 3,268 liters of water per day. Now because of which it is actually over depending upon the water, the green water as well as the blue water, we are actually over depending. Even irrigated areas, many dominant crops require green water, as I have told you, rice crops, they require this green water. Now, how is El Nino and the northeast monsoon connected? So, you see the rabi crops, they actually require that kind of the blue water, but with the persistence of this El Nino and such, which is actually affecting the southwest monsoon, the rapid availability of water in these areas are actually also affected, and because of which the rabi crops which are actually sown in the winter season in certain areas are also affected. So, what are the persistent uncertainties that are actually presenting in India? The amount of monsoon precipitation has been decreasing since 1915. So, if you are looking like the pattern or the chart, there has been a decrease in monsoon availability, like in the past century till now there has been a decrease in the monsoon available, and because of which the temperature is also increasing. We heard that July was the hottest month ever to be recorded in India, and now we are hearing that August was much more higher. So, in the future we can see that each month, precedent month will be actually much hotter than the precedent month. So, that is how the climate variation in India is actually taking place. Increased frequency of intensity of rain. Certain areas we can see that there is increase in rain intensity, particularly as I have told you, there was shift of monsoon trough from central India to the north of India, because of which they are getting excess of rain, whereas the central India which used to get rain is actually not getting rain and it is actually turning into a rain. So, that is one of the persisting uncertainty that is existing in India. Now, because of this uncertainty, the entire cycle, hydrogenical cycle, the events associated with actually also affected because of this. So, these are some of the uncertainties which are still facing and we cannot control it. These are actually controlled by the climatic interference as such. So, what is the way forward? The only thing which we can actually do here, we cannot control the climate. The only thing we can actually change is the outcome related to it. We can actually increase the productivity of crops is much tolerant to this kind of climate change. If you are talking, we have the millet system. The millets is not that vulnerable to that climate change. It can even thrive in arid climate. It can even thrive with less water. So, that can be a better replacement to the rice, which is actually much more water intensive and much more dependent upon the climate. So, because of which we can actually create much more resilient crops which are resilient to the climate change. So, that is one of the way forward. Now, moving on, we have the Sir Creek dispute issue. So, this Sir Creek dispute has been the low hanging fruit in the India-Pakistan border issues. So, if you are looking the India-Pakistan, like Sir Creek is actually a small strip of land, like just 96 kilometer strip of land that is actually between India and Pakistan in the Kutch region, in the Rann of Kutch marshland, and this creek actually opens up to this Arabian Sea. So, if you are seeing here, this is the creek. This is actually the international border coming. This is a creek. This is the Sindh area of Pakistan. This is the Kutch area of India. The thing is that this was actually a part of British India province, but after the independence itself, India and Pakistan actually has started facing issue because of the division of the Sir Creek dispute. In 1914 settlement, it was that the government of Sindh and the Raja of Kutch actually came to agreement that this line, this green line which you see here, demarcates till this green line, it actually belongs to the Sindh area, which means that the entire Sir Creek body actually belonged to the Sindh area. But in the 1925, there was actually a review again which stated not the green line, but the red line to be the division, of the Sir Creek. So, the Pakistan claims that it's 1914 holds true, whereas India claims that it's 1925, the red line, which is actually the Sir Creek actually divided between India and Pakistan actually holds true. Now, there has been a lot of issue going on between, like the fishermen being caught here, caught in India, Indian fishermen caught in the Pakistan area. So, that is all the problem that actually comes in between the Sir Creek. But as per like Tewang's law that is actually present there, if actually any two countries, if there is a water body between any two countries, that water body actually should be divided in between, so that if it is actually navigable water bodies. So, India following that methodology, India actually talks about this 1925 where this resolution of mid cruise has been actually made. So, that is this entire plot about this Sir Creek dispute that has been actually taking place. So you can see here, this is actually divided, this is known as the Green Line. This is actually based upon this Bombay Government Resolution of 1914 that is actually signed between the Government of Sindh and the Maharaja of Kutch. But India claims a boundary lies in the mid-channel as depicted by the 1924-1925 map. Then there is another law called the Thalberg Doctrine, in which international maritime law, if the two countries has one water body or channel in between, if it is navigable, then it should be divided between. So that is all the entire Sir Creek dispute that has been talked in news. Now the Sir Creek is very strategic because it's like a lot of fishing, like there is a lot of possibility of fishing, like certain high cost prawns and such can be actually cultivated or created in such an area, because of which the Sir Creek is strategically very important for both India and Pakistan. Going to the last issue, we have the Nipah virus. Now recently Nipah virus outbreak has found in Kerala and 2 people has actually died due to Nipah virus. Now this Nipah virus is actually a zoonotic virus. Zoonotic means there is actually traverse of this virus from animals to humans. So that is depicted by zoonotic virus, and it is actually an airborne transmitted infection, because if a people is actually coming in contact, they will actually ultimately get the virus. Now these can actually coming into contact with infected bat or infected animals such as pig, which are most vulnerable to actually get contaminated by this kind of virus. The infected bat may actually secrete their, they transmit the virus via their secretions and excreta. This can actually be transmitted human to human as well. So if you are looking in this figure, this Nipah, NIV, was actually first detected in Malaysia and then in Singapore and such. Now this actually the primary source or primary transmitter of this Nipah virus is actually bat. Now from this bat, it can actually either go directly to humans or directly to animals. If the humans are consuming fruits which has been actually eaten or consumed by this infected bat, humans will actually get the Nipah virus. Or this Nipah virus can actually transmit it from animals, and from animals or close contact with the animals, humans can get this Nipah virus. Then from humans to humans also, this Nipah virus will actually get transmitted. So this Nipah virus, they can be marked by fever, headache, drowsiness and such. So there is actually presently no such vaccine or cure that has been brought out for this. Like isolation will be actually one such method by which we can actually address this present issue right now, like COVID we have such. So no vaccine for this Nipah virus has been actually brought out, and this recent breakout is actually in Kerala. So that is it for today. This was 6 important news of yesterday's and today's. So thank you, have a nice day, and we will see again again on Friday. Tomorrow there will be a poll regarding this today's news. So please go to our Gallant IAS official channel, and you will actually get your polls by afternoon 1 to 1:30 in between. So please attend the polls. There will be 5 questions for tomorrow. Thank you and have a nice day.